Hello and welcome back to the Right Hand Podcast and another installment of Building Without a Blueprint. This is the series for law firm owners who are building something without a traditional roadmap. The attorneys who became entrepreneurs, the founders learning leadership while they're running the business, the people creating firms, careers, opportunities while trying to figure out the process along the way. Because building a law firm isn't simply about becoming busier, it's about becoming better. Better systems, better leadership, better people, and ultimately becoming a better organization. So today we're going to talk about something that it sounds simple, but it's actually one of the biggest differences between a law firm that stays small and one that grows successfully. And that's hiring help versus building an actual team. So let's get into that now. And as usual, what we're going to do, I always like to start these off with a question. Um, how many people work at your law firm? And when I ask this question, you probably know the answer immediately. Maybe it's three, maybe it's five, maybe it's 15, maybe it's even 50. Um, but here's the more important question. How many of those people are actually part of a team? And that's not necessarily the same number that actually work at your law firm. You could have 10 people working in the same law firm and still not have a team. You can have attorneys, paralegals, legal assistant, office manager, IT, administrative staff, whatever it may be. And that may be 10 individuals who work independently. And that's not, a good thing. It's because hiring people is relatively easy, but building that actual team, that actual culture is much harder. And there's a difference between help and team. So when a law firm owner says, I need help, what they often mean is I'm overwhelmed. I have too much work. I need someone to take things off my plate, and all of that's completely understandable. But hiring help can also solve an immediate problem. But there's a difference between solving today's workload and building an actual organization that you need for tomorrow. And help is transactional. A team is organizational. And I'll say that again. Help is transactional. It's building a team is organizational. Help what it does, it asks, what can someone take off my plate? What can they do in the immediate? A team asked, what can we accomplish together that none of us could accomplish alone? And that's a very different mindset. Um, Usually that first hire is often about relief. So if we go back to the beginning, maybe you started your practice alone, you did everything, and eventually you couldn't keep up. So what you did, you hired an assistant, maybe like a paralegal, and then an associate or some, maybe associate first and then a paralegal. And at each stage, I'm sorry, you solved the problem, and that's normal. Um, Everyone has to start somewhere. Every firm starts somewhere. But eventually, the owner has to stop asking, who can help me? And start asking, who does this firm need? And that's the transition that you have from hiring help to building an actual team. Um, one of the biggest things that I guess mistakes that you can say that I see is firm owners hiring based entirely on trying to solve today's problem. The owner is overwhelmed with administrative work, so they hire an administrator. The owner is overwhelmed with cases, so they hire an associate. The owner is struggling with intakes, so they hire an intake person. And again, there's nothing wrong with any of those hires. The problem occurs when there's no larger organizational plan behind them. So, like, you can end up with a collection of employees who are just solving isolated problems instead of moving a team um, with a shared objective. So, I believe that every hire should have a purpose. So, before you hire someone, I encourage owners to ask, why does this role exist? Don't ask, what task will this person do? You ask, what problem is this role solving for the organization? And that's a much better question. Um, so, maybe the roles exist to improve client experience. Maybe it exists to increase attorney capacity. Maybe it exists to, develop the next level of leadership. Once you understand the purpose of the role, you can design a position around that actual purpose. Uh, Simple job descriptions are just not enough. Far too many law firm owners. Hey, I'm just going to punch in AI and come up with a job description. Um, there's an important distinction. A job description tells someone what they're responsible for. It doesn't necessarily tell them how their work contributes to the firm. So teams need context. An associate should understand more than just your job is to handle cases. They should understand, who are we serving? What experience are we trying to create? What does excellent work look like here? And at each firm, it's different what excellent work looks like. Um, they should know, how does my role contribute to the goals of the firm? And what does actual success look like here at this firm? When people understand with the larger mission of the firm, they make better decisions. You're creating this culture, and culture doesn't happen by accident. Um, Culture, a lot of law firm owners think that culture is something that just happens naturally, and it doesn't. Culture is created by what you tolerate, by what you reward as a law firm owner, by how you and what you communicate, how you lead, how you respond to mistakes, how you treat the people at your firm, how the decisions are made, whether quickly or not quickly. Um, you can have a great group of individual employees and still have a dysfunctional culture because you haven't set that tone. And as an owner, you need to set that tone, especially, this is really important in smaller firms, because everybody sees the founder, the owner. They watch how you communicate as the leader, how you handle pressure, how you treat clients, how you respond when things go wrong, how you treat the employees, how you treat them. If you're constantly saying nobody around here knows how to do anything, or things like that, your team hears that. If you're constantly overriding people, they stop making decisions and waiting on you. You create your own bottleneck. If you never acknowledge good work, people stop going above and beyond. And leadership isn't just what you tell the people. It's what they experience from you. That's true leadership. You can tell them one thing, but if they're experiencing something totally different, that's what they're taking in. That's how they see that actual leadership. Um, your team members need clarity. And one of the biggest causes of dysfunction in small firms, it, it's unclear. They're unclear about their duties, unclear about their responsibility. Two people, you know, will think someone else is handling this. Oh, I thought he was handling. Oh, I thought she was handling. Um, no one knows who owns a process. An employee makes a decision that another person disagrees with. The owner, gets pulled into the middle, and this is where organizational clarity becomes essential. People need to know, what do I own? What am I accountable for? What decisions can I make? When do I need to escalate something? Because without that clarity, even the most talented of people are going to struggle in your firm. And having accountability isn't micromanagement. And this is a misconception that because you're holding your team accountable means, that I'm constantly checking in on people, and that's not the case. Healthy accountability is what I'm talking about, and that means that people understand what they're responsible for and knows that the results matter. You don't need to ask, "Did you do this every 2 hours?" Because you know it's going to be done. You need systems in your firm. You have to develop these systems that allow everyone to know what's expected, what happened, what's next, step by step. And that's the difference between management by surveillance and management by accountability. So, when you build a team, you have to also be thinking about what just in the immediate, but what the firm will need 6 months or 2 years from now. And that doesn't mean hiring people before you can afford them. It means considering whether the person you're hiring has the capability to grow in the organization. So, ask, could this person eventually take on more responsibility? Can I see them as a leader, becoming a leader one day? Can they develop a particular expertise? Is it possible that this person could eventually manage others? And the goal isn't to make every employee a manager. It's to create room for people to grow. So those who do show those traits or those skills can grow and eventually become a manager or a leader within your organization. And with that, you have to plan accordingly and make the right hiring decisions so you're avoiding the constant turnover. And if you're constantly replacing people, it's always, when that happens, it's tempting to just assume that, hey, it's impossible to find good people out there. Sometimes maybe that's true, but a lot of times the problem isn't the hiring; it's the organization. If people don't understand the roles, if expectations constantly change, if the owner micromanages, if high performers have no path forward, if communication is poor, good employees eventually leave. And you can't solve a leadership problem with another job posting. So you have to, instead of that collection of individual employees, you have to create a real team. And what does a real strong law firm team actually look like? It doesn't mean that everyone agrees all the time. And it doesn't mean that there are never any problems. And it certainly doesn't mean that everyone likes everyone in the firm. I mean, no matter what, best organizations, you're just going to have personality conflicts. That's human nature. But what a strong team means is that people understand the mission. They all know their responsibilities. They communicate with each other. They trust each other. They take ownership. They solve problems together. And they understand that their individual success is connected to the firm's success. And that's the goal. So here's something that you can do this week as a law firm owner. Take every person currently working in your firm, write it down. What do they own? And I mean, what is essentially theirs? And not what do they help with, not what they occasionally do. What do they actually own? Then ask, could I explain their role in one sentence? And if you can't, this is a warning sign. Um, Now ask yourself, does this person's role support where the firm is going, or is it there simply where the firm has been? And what I mean by that is can you see their role helping move the firm into the future, or is their role still stuck at a point um, of when you hired them 4 years ago because you needed a stopgap? The question right there can reveal a lot about your current organizational structure. So you need to stop hiring seats. You need to make a mind shift. And one of the biggest mind shifts a growing firm can make is to stop thinking in terms of just filling seats instead of thinking of think of, you know, think in terms of building capabilities. You don't need another employee. What you need is more capacity. What you need is maybe better leadership, stronger client service, more specialized expertise, maybe better systems, more accountability. When you think about capabilities rather than headcount, hiring becomes strategic. Um, your team should make your firm stronger, everybody. The ultimate test, ask yourself, if I add another person to this firm, does the organization actually become stronger or does it become more complicated? Every hire creates a management responsibility. Every person adds communication requirements. Every role creates dependencies. That's why growth isn't simply about just adding people. It's about adding the right capabilities in the right sequence. This brings us back to the larger theme of building without a blueprint. It's building something bigger than yourself. When you started this firm, you may have been building a practice, but at some point, that opportunity changes. You're no longer simply practicing law. Now you're building an organization, and organizations require structure. They require leadership. They require culture. They require systems, and you can't keep ignoring this. People who carry the responsibility beyond the founder is what you need. That's when your firm begins to become something, bigger than you, something that can operate when you're not there. So what's the difference between hiring help and building a team? Hiring asks, when can someone do this for me? Building a team asks, what can we build together? And so hiring solves today's problems. Building a team prepares you for tomorrow. And if you want your law firm to grow sustainably, that distinction really matters. And because eventually the question isn't, how many people work for me? It's what can this organization accomplish without everything depending on me? And that's the real measure of a team. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Building Without a Blueprint. Next time, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about one of the most expensive mistakes a growing firm can make, and that's what good employees leave, or excuse me, why good employees leave, and what your law firm may be doing to drive them away. Until then, keep building intentionally, hire for purpose, lead with clarity, and remember a collection of employees can help you run a law firm. A great team can help you build one. Thank you again for listening to The Right Hand. Talk to you soon. Bye.